right, so we have some extra Vancouver Canucks stuff to go over. The do's and the don'ts, the haves and the have-nots, and some very strange and unexpected updates from the New York Rangers. Yeah, this does involve the Vancouver Canucks, folks. So, quick aside. Yesterday, we saw the Vancouver Canucks do nothing at the trade deadline, and that was met with a lot of criticism. A lot of folks on Sportsnet 650's text inbox, a lot of folks on social media, a lot of folks in the comments section of our videos complaining about the Vancouver Canucks' lack of activity. Well, I'd say the biggest piece of inactivity was the fact that Brock Boeser was still on the team, and he did not end up getting moved like everybody was speculating he would have. No trades for Pettersson, no trades for Pius Suter, no trades for Thatcher Demko. But with this in mind, let's go over some of the extra news and notes from yesterday's post-game after the Canucks beat the Minnesota Wild. Let's talk about some other angles and some other talking points, because there are a lot of things to get into. Before we get into that, though, this show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Go out there and check out that first link in the description to save some money on your VPN. Let's take our first conversation of this video over to the Big Apple. No, we are not talking about JT Miller and the New York Rangers. We're talking about Carson Soucy. Because, yeah, he scored today. Really weird. Really weird to see Soucy get a goal for the Rangers in his first game. This tweet by Jeff Patterson kind of sums it all up. Soucy had 2 goals in his first 58 games of this season. Then he scored in what turned out to be his final game with the Vancouver Canucks, and now he scores another goal in his first game with the New York Rangers. Somebody says Carson Soucy or Cale Makar. What's going on with this guy? How does he find a way to score right before getting traded and scoring again right after getting traded? After having only 2 goals in the first 58 games of the season, that is crazy. A lot of these replies in the Twitter thread are saying, oh, it's the Canucks bump. The ex-Canucks bump, you could say. JT Miller did the same thing in New York. Kind of crazy how all these former Vancouver Canucks going over to the Rangers always seem to find immediate success. So I guess Carson Soucy is right in that conversation too. Talk about very strange coincidences. Now, let's stick local here and talk about some of the other Vancouver Canucks related news, because after the game against Minnesota yesterday, you did have yourself some extra discourse from Canucks players and media as to everything that went down or everything that didn't go down in this trade market. So, let's talk about firstly Elias Pettersson and his response to the game yesterday after scoring a really big goal to give the Canucks the 1-0 lead. We said in the video yesterday, as long as Pettersson can play like that, folks will continue to be happy for him and continue supporting him without actually getting snarky about him and his lack of performance. Petey ended up saying that I'm just trying to get better every day. Today was a good day. We got the win, I had a goal, good practice tomorrow, and then get ready for Sunday. Now, this is where we talk about some of the other conversations, because it wasn't posted about specifically by the Vancouver Canucks Twitter account, but Pettersson was asked as well about Brock Boeser and how Boeser is still on the team. Big smile from EP when asked if it's nice to know Boeser will be here the whole year. He didn't have to say much to tell that he was happy. Another post here by Liv goes out there and shows the big smile Petey after he was asked if he was happy Brock is staying. That's a happy guy, man. A really happy guy. Now, there also was a conversation about how this is really short-sighted and how Boeser won't be here for the full year unless the Canucks give him a really big overpay. And ultimately, I do understand that concern. I do think that there is a price point that Boeser is trying to get, a length of time that he's trying to get that's a little bit out of reach compared to what the Canucks are comfortable giving him. Patrick Allvin said yesterday, oh, they're going to keep on negotiating this and that. It's not surprising to hear that update. But for Brock himself, he did have a little bit of commentary about the trade situation too. He told Farhan Lalji and Patrick Johnson after the game yesterday that he did read Allvin's comments about how the trade market for him wasn't really all too strong. and Boeser hasn't really processed all of it. Here he emphasized how loyal he has been to the Vancouver Canucks over the years, and he was more focused on being better in tonight's game. He expects he'll speak to Allvin about it in the days ahead, and is trying not to read too much into it. He is still open to an extension. And that's a really classy response from a guy who pretty much got disrespected in the media from his GM. We had spoken yesterday about how there's no way Boeser's agent would have been happy with this conversation from Allvin, and we had some other ex-NHL players speaking out on Twitter like, oh, that's a great way to build a positive relationship with the player's agent by talking smack about the player and saying that he's not going to get you a lot of return on the trade market. Oh, teams aren't interested in our guy and they don't want to pay our prices. That's a great way to go out there and handle your business publicly. But then the question also begs itself, was this a negotiation tactic? I don't know. Here's some comments from the Canucks sub that go out there and describe this. I'm guessing I'm misunderstanding the comments that Allvin made. I took it as that he had valued Brock higher than what was being offered to them. No? I think Allvin's thought process was that he'd rather overpay Brock than have a second-round pick, but he made it public because he's hoping it spooks Boeser into accepting a lesser contract. And there's nothing wrong with that. Lots of overreacting from the fanbase today. Watch the Canucks extend Brock on a reasonable contract and everyone will be like, oh, Allvin cooked. Brock's agent's expectations should be checked if 8x5 wasn't a reasonable offer. It'll probably be less now that the rest of the league basically gave him an idea of how he's valued. His agent knows what was offered as well, not just the Canucks front office. And if Boeser is not able to budge, if him and his party are not willing to negotiate any less than that, then I guess this is where we say goodbye. Who knows? Another comment thread says here, I don't think that Boeser needs to be spooked at this point. He's not performing to the level he expects to get paid, and he hasn't performed like that for a while. He's a goal scorer that's not scoring goals for some time. Sorry, that's going to lower your value. In the trade market and in the contract extension market too. I love Brock, but he needs to throw the Canucks a bone if he wants to stay in Vancouver. So, we'll see what happens, whether or not Brock does decide to stick around and sign a contract that's of lesser value than 8x5 or 8x whatever it is that he was asking for. We'll see. But furthermore to the Brock Boeser trade conversation, I wanted to go over another tweet posted by NHL Watcher on Twitter earlier this morning. It's about the Ottawa Senators. Bruce Garriock on TSN says, the Ottawa Senators went far down the road with Nashville in a deal involving Josh Norris and Ryan O'Reilly that fell apart last night. He also says that the Senators were talking to Vancouver about a deal involving Josh Norris as well. So Allvin did not go out there and make any trades yesterday, but it seems like he was in the market almost stepping in and making a trade for Josh Norris, whom we all saw got traded to Buffalo in the Dylan Cousins trade yesterday too. If you're trying to fill in the pieces as to what Vancouver could have sent over to Ottawa in some sort of a Josh Norris trade, do you want to talk about a center? Is it Elias Pettersson going the other way? I'm not sure if the Canucks would have been interested in doing a Norris for Pettersson swap unless the Ottawa Senators added a lot more other assets on top of that, but it certainly is interesting. If you wanted to talk about Brock Boeser, because that's a guy whose name has been tossed around there too, if you're doing Boeser for Norris, I think Vancouver automatically gets a pretty sizable improvement with that sort of a move, because Norris can score goals, he can play center, he's a little bit more versatile than Brock Boeser is mobility-wise too. So just to hear that Allvin was in the market for a Josh Norris, it does indicate to us that he was doing his job, at the very least, right? But at the end of the day, they didn't make any trades. And to end off this video, I wanted to go over one more bigger talking point. This was posted by Grady earlier this morning. It talks about the Canucks not making any trades and compares it to some of the teams that did make trades. The teams who traded expiring UFAs that netted higher-end picks in return were all sellers, and they were out of the playoff race. The Canucks are very much in the race, clinging to wildcard number 2. If you subtract Boeser and Suter from the lineup, the Canucks become that much weaker. A couple of second-round picks aren't helping this team immediately unless they are flipped for other roster players. I can understand the frustration in the market, but this is how this owner operates. They want the playoffs, and they aren't going to deplete their roster when that's the goal. Not saying I fully agree, but this is what they do. I don't think we should be surprised anymore. So with that in mind, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about all these Vancouver Canucks updates, how they were in on Norris, how Carson Soucy scored in his New York Rangers debut, how the Canucks had offers for Boeser, they weren't great, how Pettersson spoke out about his play and his own joy that Boeser is still a Canuck. Thoughts in the comment section below about all these Vancouver Canucks notes. I hope you enjoyed this video. Zayne, and bye.